Hey and welcome, I'm Hammeh and we have what looks to be a new Overwatch Hero teaser in 2020 of all years, praise be to Jeff. In this video I'm going to analyse the teaser for all of the lore details and nuggets. We're going to go through who Liao is, Dr. Mina Liao. This is the personal log of none other than. Also have a little bit of a look at what Athena is and the history and idea of Athena in Overwatch. Also going to talk about how this actually gives us a nice little bit of context as to when this is all happening, but also raises as many questions as it actually answers. Hopefully we'll get answers for those over the next week, maybe 2 weeks, who knows. And then finally speculate, well, what hero is it most likely to be and when could we see them? Timecodes in the description below if you'd like to have a skip around. Okay, let's get into the juicy lore analysis, but with context too. So this is the personal log of Dr. Mina Liao. Now, I made a video on Liao way back in 2016, actually from the launch of Overwatch itself in May 2016. And this is where the name Liao originally comes from. Now, you can watch that video, albeit with slightly clunky sound quality in my older editing. Hopefully I've learned something over the last few years. I've linked that in the description below. Liao, of course, is named as one of the original founders of Overwatch. In the Overwatch launch blog, known as Overwatch is Back, a little excerpt of which I'm showing you here. Now, further on, Liao is literally just checked as a name. That's the first thing that we've ever kind of really known about them. Now, the other thing that people, including myself, have speculated was the Overwatch graphic novel that was cancelled, 100 pages, First Strike, back in 2016 as well. Later in 2016 it was cancelled. It had a beautiful cover, and on that beautiful cover we saw Reyes, we saw Morrison, and then Soldier 76 and Reaper, their future selves as ghosts in the background. We saw Reinhardt, we saw Ana Amari, we saw Torbjorn, we saw something that looked like a rather dangerous Omnic, and then we also saw in the middle there what a person and then a Omnic or a robot of some kind. So my speculation was, and indeed many others people's was at the time, was that maybe that's Liao, and Liao is the fifth member of Overwatch, the original founding Strike team. Maybe that is them indeed. Of course, First Strike was cancelled. A big part of the reason being that the Overwatch team wanted to try and be more flexible in telling the stories in different ways. So any of the, I think, 5 or 6 pages we've seen, as well as this cover, are probably no longer canon. So who knows whether that's Liao or not. But that was the only other thing that people speculated to have been Liao at all. So now we actually have some details, and indeed some of these actually seem as though they back up what we vaguely may have thought Liao to be, but certainly one of the founding members of Overwatch. Dr. Mina Liao's log is very interesting, and I'll pick out a few details before we dive into them in detail. So, interesting things here. Mina Liao seems kind of, to be honest, pretty pro Omnic sentience, potentially, or artificial life. So that's thing number one. Like Mina Liao, as well as being a doctor, is certainly sounding to be a scientist or a researcher or perhaps an engineer, who knows. But one of these things, they've already made the Athena prototype, and we'll talk about Athena in a sec. They're then looking to do something new that Morrison himself is greenlit. Who knows what that could be. I find it interesting that Liao kind of mocks Jack in the logs. They will know that this is a recorded document on the Overwatch servers. They may even know that Morrison can review and listen to these. So that indicates, I think, if not probably not a disregard for Morrison, but who knows, but certainly a familiarity with Morrison that may well sort of sink in with the fact that Liao is still in lore, who knows, a founding or an early member of Overwatch, perhaps even dating back to pre or during the first Omnic crisis. But we'll talk about the Athena prototype first. Now, ever since Project Titan, this sort of game that was kind of scrapped and sort of cancelled, and then Overwatch arose from the ashes of, there have been wonderful pieces of concept art and ideas floating around for so long. And what I'm showing you here is part of an Overwatch presentation from the team at BlizzCon a few years back, where Jeff and Arnold Sang went through the process of Overwatch being developed and the timelines rising from the ashes of Titan. So this is just an idea that was sort of sold as a hero cast from Titan, but also around Overwatch's conception as well. You can see some familiar faces there. Many people over the last couple of years have cited this image. You can see in the middle there, as well as many fascinating ideas, Ironclad being Torbjorn, Angelica, well, she looks a bit familiar. But also, right in the middle there, you can see none other than Iris. And Iris, with that sort of A-shaped symbol on her head, has kind of been known as Athena. And ever since I did a video which was kind of like top 10 hero concepts or top 10 future heroes in Overwatch, like way back in 2015, 2016, people have loved, and I have loved, speculating about future Overwatch heroes. Now, Prometheus rising, you know, as a project We have the Prometheus concept art here, and this was then iterated on. This was early art, obviously not canon. We can see in the middle there the shape that's sort of iron. Many people used to call Athena as an idea. And then moving through to even as recently as, and this art is technically no longer canon, even though it's in the Overwatch initial announcement trailer of BlizzCon 2014, I do believe. In the middle right here, of course, what I and many people refer to as Athena. So this idea of Athena as potentially being a hero or being a thing within Overwatch has been around for quite a long time. Now, of course, we now know Athena in Overwatch as being the AI we presume, we speculate, that Winston works with, that is part of the Overwatch mainframe and systems that we see in the events of Recall and that we hear in the dropship when the Overwatch dropship is dropping people in and into control maps, for example, things like Ilios. We see bits of conversation and hear bits of conversation from Athena. Even in the Reflections Christmas comic, where Winston is having Christmas with Athena, Tracer and Emily. So that is Athena to us. So the Athena prototype, is that what Dr. Liao initially created? And if Athena, the AI or whatever Athena is in the Overwatch mainframes that Winston works with, is Dr. Liao's prototype, then the real question is, what is this project that Dr. Liao had greenlit? And is that really what the hero actually is? Athena is not only a reference to the Athena we know in the Overwatch universe, but it's also a bit of a nod to previous concept art and things that have since been declared. These were concepts, these were works in progress, these were ideations and iterations. So Athena is certainly a charged name, both in terms of current lore significance and also past Overwatch and previously Project Titan and Prometheus history, which I find very, very interesting. We'll come to that at the end on future heroes. Next up, just the whole sort of thread about Omnics in here. So it's interesting that Liao says the timing couldn't be better for my project. People are as scared of Omnics as they ever have been, even at a time when they seem more human than ever. So those lines and the following lines date this as certainly post first Omnic crisis. But remember, there's a rough period of 2 decades after the Omnic crisis in which Overwatch brought peace to the world before it all in theory fell apart. And then there's 5 to 6 to 7 years after Overwatch fell apart, from Overwatch sort of going down the can until the present day. And then of course the timeline has moved forward since Overwatch actually launched. So depending on how much time you feel has moved since the events of Overwatch is Back, the blog when Overwatch launched back in 2016, although we've moved forward 4 years in real life, it depends how many years have moved forward in the Overwatch timeline. But Overwatch timelining is a subject for another day. Indeed, I've done a Lore Bites video on that briefly a few years back. I think it's time to revisit it again and see. However long you feel has passed, whether it's 5 years, 6 years or 7 years, there's certainly a 2-decade period in which Overwatch brought peace to the world, roughly speaking. All dates in Overwatch are relative. Anyone who gives you a fixed year is basing it off various rough dates that the devs have given in various talks over the last 4 to 5 years, many of which may have been changed. But I'll get onto that another time. This sounds as though Liao was very much active and part of Overwatch, if not in the early days, during the first Omnic crisis, as was previously what we sort of speculated from one naming in one launch blog, then certainly active during after the first Omnic crisis as well. And that gives us dating questions as to where do we date Liao, and then more importantly, where has Liao gone? This figure who clearly was working with Morrison, working on this project, worked on and maybe built Athena, if it's referring to the mainframe that we're talking about, to the AI that Winston works with. The legacy of Liao's work, if that's Liao's work, is still in Overwatch today. But where is Liao? We can see a bit more about them being active in this teaser and about what they've been up to. But what is this project that they're working on? And where have they gone? That's a big question. Now, there are speculations we can make if we just say that Athena Prototype tying together with Athena, and maybe this is Echo. And if this is Echo, we could make some speculations, which I'll go for. If you've had a look at my animated short analysis of Reunion, the McCree animated short, then you'll know that obviously Echo turns up first there back in 2018, late 2018. We know that McCree is familiar with Echo, and if it's Echo that ties this all together, Echo asked McCree what happened to his hand. If Echo was the project that's being worked on, let's say that this is an Efi to Orisa style scenario. We're introduced to Efi in teasers and then Orisa as the hero. We're introduced to Dr. Liao, and then maybe Liao after working on Athena, which is kind of this AI or sort of intelligence, then works on maybe a different project perhaps. Then if Echo is what it's going to be, and a lot of people think that Echo might even come with Overwatch 2. Then Echo has been put away in storage and didn't know what happened to McCree's hand. Now Echo then has gone off the map before McCree's hand actually got lost. Now I need to double check this off the top of my head, but I believe in Uprising McCree still has both hands. So before the end of Overwatch, McCree still has both hands. So it's going to be interesting to know if Echo is anything to do with this when Echo went off the map. I know this is deep McCree artificial hand, prosthetic hand, cybernetic hand lore, but it's useful in setting out all these timings. In this blog, Liao also mentions Omnics in London. Now, Liao is not mentioning there's been a King's Row uprising, which would really date things, right? And we'd really know what's going on. We'd know that Liao was around at the time of the King's Row uprising. This sounds like it's before then. So it's sounding like Liao has gone missing sometime before the events of Storm Rising, before the events maybe of Retribution, who knows, before the events of Uprising and King's Row. These are all in the last couple of years before Overwatch finally goes down the tube. If this project itself, whatever it is, whether it's Echo or not, whether it's a new hero or not, maybe Echo is what we're guessing and it's something else. What's the purpose of it? Well, it very much sounds like it's to prove that artificial life is something that should be celebrated, and that all of these stories about monks in Nepal, about manufacturing omnics in London, Liao is concerned with violence against omnics and governments cracking down on rights and freedoms. It's as if that the project that Liao is working on is going to be an example to show the world that omnics should be treated better. And if so, what could that be? How could it translate to a hero if Liao is not the hero themselves? What could it do? Omnics shouldn't be property or servants. There's so much more potential than treating them as such, according to Liao. So this is going to be very, very interesting, and seeing where this actually goes. It's but one teaser, and Liao somewhat ominously says at the end, there is much to do, but I have to try. I have to try show the world a better way before it's too late. Now, who knows what the too late is? Is it too late for the world? Is that what's happening now with the second Omnic crisis? And if so, then where is Liao? It's sounding from this timing, unless we hear things more recently, of all of the stuff that we've seen with Overwatch 2 and similar, with all of the comics things we've had, with all of the comics and views we've had of Overwatch just before Overwatch fell, and things like Retribution, and things like Uprising, and things like Storm Rising. And Liao has just been a big absence. If Liao is a big figure in Overwatch, or was a big figure in Overwatch, they're just not in any of these sources. It feels like that's got to be for some reason. They can't just be sitting in the background. But what or why? Are they hidden away someplace working on this project? Did this project somehow go wrong? That could be a very, very interesting twist or tease. We'll have to see and find out. Either way, I can't wait to see. So there we have it. There's tease number one. If Overwatch Heroes go in the way that they have been, just to round up, we know after a few years of Overwatch, and Overwatch entering into its 4th anniversary coming up this May, that we get maybe a week, maybe a couple of weeks of hero teasers. So we could perhaps have the new hero, whoever they are, maybe as early as towards the end of this week, maybe Thursday, for example. Overwatch very often update the public test realm, PTR and PC, on Thursdays. There have also been some analysis of little comments made by certain streamers and certain YouTubers recently, perhaps referring to dates later this week, maybe even this Thursday. So I think that we certainly over the next couple of days have got to keep an eye out. Who knows, we could have an Overwatch hero maybe by the end of this week, maybe even on this Thursday, but if not, certainly within the next couple of weeks, I think. I can't wait to see where these teasers are going to take us. So every night this week, I think we need to keep an eye. So who do you think this hero could be? Do you think that this is going towards Echo? Or is Echo going to be more of an Overwatch 2 thing? Could this simply be a bait and switch? Is Liao the hero themselves? Potentially herself? And if so, then what could their abilities and kit be? Could it be Echo? Could it be this artificial intelligence? Is it something Omnic-wise that Liao is working on? And could it be just something entirely different? Could we get a brand new Omnic hero of a different kind? I can't wait to find out, and I don't think it's going to be long before we do. If you like this video, throw a like, subscribe. Thank you for listening and tuning in. Lots of Overwatch lore, interactions, voice lines, animated shorts, comics analysis in my playlists here over the last 4 years of Overwatch and beyond. And stay tuned for some exclusive cool content from myself later this week. I've been working on some cool things behind the scenes Overwatch-wise. Can't wait to share them with you. Also, do check out my Pilot Week content in the playlist here too. I've been working on some new videos around Overwatch, and then also around other Blizzard games, lore and story, and world building that I really enjoy too. So for the next 2-3 weeks throughout March, I'm going to be showing those as well. Big thanks to my patrons on Patreon who make a bunch of stuff possible and indeed have helped me do the kind of crazy and weird and long videos that you may have appreciated here over the last few years and beyond. You can check my Patreon out at patreon.com/Hammeh. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammeh. Take it easy.